You're listening to The Bastards of Kingsgrave, the intersection of A Song of Ice and Fire and everything else. As usual, this is Amin, and today we're going to be talking about Comic-Con 2019 at San Diego, as well as some of the recent anime and manga we've been watching or reading recently. I'm joined by our usual anime manga crew.
This is Bill. I'm Mr. Corb on the forums.
This is Bean. I'm Shushan on the forums.
And this is Zach.
Sorry. We have a returning guest host with us today as well.
Yeah, it's not technically a usual on this, but I'm glad to be back and to bring some shocking lack of knowledge.
We need to have fans of all power levels, so you can represent the lower ones.
Yes, I'm like the Raditz of the show.
No, you're better than Raditz because we brought you back.
Fair enough. I survived one episode.
To bring you back
You're like pinching hot. How about that?
Yes, I'll take that. Yeah.
I was going to say Yamcha, but that's too mean.
It's a little mean.
Krillin? Hey,
Krillin,
that's pretty good. Actually,
yeah,
right?
Krillin's good, yeah. Take that.
He gets power, he has a nice wife, he has a kid. Okay, well, we will be talking quite a bit about Dragon Ball, actually, because that's talking about Comic-Con. It was hosting, I think, either the first part or one of the parts, anyway, of the Dragon Ball World Adventure, which is kind of a moving tour between different cities in the world that has... They set up there basically like a little mini city there with full-size figures you can take pictures of with the various characters, the actual figures you can buy. They have the video game there. They have all this kind of stuff you can collect there, like Dragon Ball lanyards and bags and stuff if you do, like, you basically jump through the hoops and do the kind of stuff for free, get free swag. And so I went to this, it was on all weekend, and they actually, I'll probably put a photo up of this episode. They actually, for the Marriott Hotel, which was one of the big hotels beside Comic-Con, they even put up Dragon Ball like on the main entrance. They had like a giant Dragon Ball thing on the main entrance, so they converted it to Dragon Ball. And then if you go in, there's all these like the kind of like things on the floor that point to where to go to the Dragon Ball setup. And then the elevators had like Dragon Ball characters on the elevator. So I'll share a photo of that with this podcast. Pretty awesome. They really embraced it. And so it was open the whole weekend, but they were actually setting it up on Wednesday. And having attended as press, I got an email. You know, you actually get tons of emails leading up to Comic-Con. So I pay attention for the ones that are to what's of interest to me. I saw Dragon Ball, and it said, "Oh, there's a special press-only thing for the first half an hour, 3 o'clock on Wednesday before it's going to open at 3:30." So I'm like, okay, it says email to RSVP. So I did that, and then they're like, oh, what are you from? What? And I'm like, okay, I do Bastards of Kingsgrave, and I do Podcast of Ice and Fire. And then like they didn't get that email, and I had to send it again. and then the guy was like, oh, I don't even know if this is appropriate. I'm like, you're the guy who emailed me. Like, you emailed me as press, and now you're just like, I can't RSVP. You're the one who sent me the email. And he's like, oh, okay, well, we've signed you up. I don't think it's appropriate. It's like the most grilling I ever got from any of these press. Like, in comparison, I'll get to I went to the Orville experience, which you think would be much more exclusive, where the press were there for part of it. And I got the email at RSVP. They're like, great, we have you on the list. They didn't even care what I was from. They just took me. But this guy was like so grilling us to be like, oh, I don't know if it counts. I'm like, hey, I've gone to Comic-Con, I've reviewed it, I have a specific episode, anime and manga at Comic-Con. So, and it turns out it didn't matter, because when we actually showed up to the event, you didn't need a badge to get in. But for the press part, if you just came in, I showed my press badge and they just waved us in. And we did end up checking in for it, but we didn't have to. We could have just been in there and done whatever. So it turns out I could have just showed up anyway with my press badge. It would have been enough, but I was actually on the list too. So we got to see everything, and I'm going to put up an album both with this episode and with the main one on Podcast of Ice and Fire, where we talk about Comic-Con as a whole. And but what's kind of cool is on Wednesday, so we saw the stuff that's going on there. They're still setting up. And it's funny, is somebody like broke into a box with like Dragon Ball T-shirts, and I didn't know that happened, but because when we were waiting for the event, somebody just like went in. They were still setting up everything, and so they vetted us so carefully. Yet one of those press went and ripped into a box. So anyway, what was happening at 3:30, although it got delayed to 4, is they were going to do an attempt at the world record, Guinness World Record, at the most people doing a Kamehameha at the same time. So
right,
they said the first 1,000 people would get scouters and stuff, and we got scouters. So we got these scouters. to wear, and then they actually gave us some shirts as well. So then they brought the press in first, and they started letting the rest of the people in to kind of like build up the crowd. So we got to meet like the main part of the group doing this, and they brought the English voice actor of Goku. He was there to help lead the crowd, and then so we had this big group there, and then we had this British guy from the Guinness Book of Records who like said what you have to do, whatever, and then we did it. We did a group Kamehameha, and we got the world record for 786 people, I think. Nearly 800 people doing a Kamehameha at the same time. So we're in the Guinness Book of Records now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And that was the first event, the first thing we did at Comic-Con. That's the kind of thing that happens at Comic-Con that makes it worth it to go there at least once if you can. So.
Bastards of Kingsgrave, a record-setting, world record-setting podcast.
That's right.
Yes.
Guinness Book of Records. I wanted to be like, email back the press guy and be like, hey, you think we were inappropriate for this? We just set the record. So then, so that was it for the Dragon Ball thing. I also got a Dragon Ball bag and some stuff later on. I didn't get, what's funny, one thing that became really big at Comic-Con is a lot of free, like they have free stuff, kind of headband free stuff. Like this one, they had the Dragon Ball hair. So you could have like a Dragon Ball hair. I didn't get that because it wasn't being handed out at that time. But that's kind of cool. They also had that for One Punch Man. They had One Punch Man different face expressions. You could get like a little headband with it, and everyone seemed to do like various booths gave that. In terms of other related, I don't know, this is not anime and manga, but still, overlap with your interests. Sci-fi. Any of you guys watch The Orville at all?
I do.
Oh, you do. Have you watched both seasons?
Yeah, I've watched all of it.
Okay, so they had the Orville experience, just kind of like the Game of Thrones experience. They set up a whole, like, what looked to be maybe like an old art gallery or something. They took it over and they put various Orville stuff in there. They had, like, props and then, like, screens from the show and all kinds of stuff from the show there. Mm-hmm. And now Comic-Con has actually dubbed it LineCon, is waiting in line for stuff. So I always contact now to be like, oh, I'm press. Can I come in for press only, please? I don't want to be lining in lines or something. Like you guys can wait outside. I want to just go in, do the thing, and leave. I don't wait for 2 hours out there. Right? Right. And then I emailed Doc saying, yes, there's a VIP/press thing on Thursday at 3:00 because the main thing didn't open until 6. So I signed up for that, and then John and Anna, so Eigen Vector John came as well, and Tara's a fan, she came, and Ashley came as well. So we had a big group, and we went there, and we were all signed up, so easily went in. And it was good. They had refreshments, they had like beer and wine and refreshments, and we got to like go through the experience without having tons of people there. There was only, they say, 40 people there instead of 100 or more, right? All press. And it was really good. Now, the only downside at that time is I left too early that I didn't get the book. Because they were handing out 3 copies of The World of the Orville, which is a pretty big book, pretty impressive book. But I did get it on Saturday, because when I went back, I'm like, hey, I didn't get this book. Can you give it to me? They're like, yeah. And they didn't give it to everyone. They gave it to press, or they gave it to people doing cosplay or specific things. But for that night, if you were there for the press thing, you got a book, which is nice. And I also got the Orville baseball hat as well.
Nice.
So it was nice. Got a little swag like that. And the cast came on Saturday. Like, I got an email saying, oh, the cast is coming at 5:30. The people that were pressed, you're already on the VIP list. So when I went back, we could just go right in. We didn't have to go in the line again. And then the press, the cast was there, so we were able to. They took photos. We didn't get photos with them because there was too many people there. But it was nice to see the cast there. Seth gave a bit of a speech and had an interview with someone, and that was good. It was a great experience for fans of the Orville, and that's common to Comic-Con. They have all kinds of different experiences for different shows. The problem is you don't want to wait like 3 or 4 hours in line to get in there. So that's why I like the press badge. The press badge is that advantage. You also get to go in a press lounge, which is a nice place to kind of just have somewhere you can actually sit and eat. Because there's not that many places you can sit and eat in Comic-Con. There's just so much going on. If you stand in one place for too long, the guards tell you to move on because there's just people walking around. Now, in terms of anime and manga, it was a little disappointing because I didn't get to the main panels I usually do. They usually have like the best and worst manga of 2019, that kind of stuff. You know Deb Aoki, Bing? Aren't you?
Yeah.
You listen to her podcast and stuff?
Yeah. She's pretty. Yeah, I read her columns sometimes.
She does good panels. I didn't get to go to her panels this year. I was going to go to, and then I went to Star Trek Deep Space Nine instead, which is the hour later. So I had to go to the previous panel before that to go into that. And then again, they had a lot of the cast there. It was a very good panel, but they didn't do Q&A, which is a bit disappointing because I wanted to do that. And one of the actors from Deep Space Nine is actually the Doctor on The Orville. So,
cool. Penny Johnson.
Penny Johnson is on there. Yeah, I did get a photo with the two kids from the Orville. Her sons in the Orville. They were mingling in the crowd, so we took a photo together. But most of the other actors weren't there that long. Plus, they got swamped. There were just too many people there for that event. But that was cool. I didn't see the actual Orville, its own panel, but I figured big panels like that you can just see on YouTube later anyway. You're just going to be sitting at the back of a huge room. You might as well just see it YouTube. But the actual more closer stuff I went to, we had our panel, the Game of Thrones Ice and Fire panel on Thursday. So that will be released audio at least with the episode. I'm trying to think if there's anything else anime, manga related or from Comic-Con. I didn't really see much of it. It was there. I was trying to get into the SpongeBob birthday blowout, but it was swamped. It was like filled up the whole room, so didn't get.
It's a hot ticket, yeah.
That's right. But I did get some figures. We got some stuff. My girlfriend is a fan of what's the show? It's the show that Code Geass, I think,
Code Geass.
Yeah. So we got some figures from that, and then we got Dragon Ball figures because we're getting into Dragon Ball again. We had gone into the Dragon Ball event, so I guess that can kind of segue into Dragon Ball generally. What I like about Dragon Ball, now that's a show I never really properly followed in the past because there's just so many episodes when I was growing up. But I think I watched the one that's like 90 episodes at the time that summarizes it, like that version, Kai maybe, Dragon Ball Kai. So I saw that, which is pretty good, and then I think there's like a fan-made abridgment one that I watch that sometimes where they summarize what happened.
So good.
It's really so good, really hilarious. Yeah. I was wearing my armor. Vegeta says. But I've been watching the movies. So I watched Broly, for example, that came out early, I think in the fall or sometime within a year, right? And when you go to those movies, everyone is a fan, so it's fun. Like everyone's enjoying it, and that's part of the fun of Dragon Ball now. Is like you have that built-up development of like there's just so many characters, but then you kind of like know them, and then there's the comedy. The comedy is woven in. So that was going there. So, is there any comments or questions on Dragon Ball? You guys wanted to talk about that?
Oh, I just kind of want to understand what, if you can explain it, what the kind of continuity with Dragon Ball is at this point. So the current airing material is Dragon Ball Super, right?
Yes.
So what is the deal with that? I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
What is that?
I'll give a shot at it, and then maybe Bing or Bill, if you know, I don't know. I don't think anyone really knows.
Not really.
The way it had happened, I think, is that there was a show called Dragon Ball. Is it GT or something?
Yeah.
Which was supposed to be the future, but it was never that popular, or is alternate canon now, and so that is not being followed. I mean, maybe still the canon, but just alternate. That GT is erased. Like we're not thinking about GT anymore.
No, yeah, GT is not canon anymore.
It doesn't exist. And so Super and the movies are kind of similar. Super is like the TV version of it, and there's more detail and longer. And the movies are kind of, the last few movies are kind of overlapping with Super for the most part. There might be some changes in between them, but they seem to be in alignment. That's the way I see it. Is that what you guys see?
I guess. I think those movies are the TV show is basically like covering similar events as the movies, right?
Yes, just in more detail.
I
Because
remember.
we have more episodes, right, to flesh it out. But the movies basically, movies are canon, and they cover, like everyone is just like, just the power levels just keep going up, right? I think you talking, what was the term you used? Like there's a term you put up for shonen, right?
The treadmill.
The treadmill. It's a treadmill jacked way up. The one the treadmill goes up with height.
Yep.
That's what it is. It's like Super Saiyan is nothing. It's like chump change now. Like Super Saiyan, like Krillin can beat a Super Saiyan or something. Like,
Wait, what?
like everyone is being powered up, right? Over time, each level becomes more and more. Like your lower level's nothing, and you got to go to the higher level. So the Dragon Ball Resurrection. So if you want to get back into Dragon Ball, I think Super's. If you want to watch, I haven't watched Super myself. Watch the last couple of movies is the way to do it. Okay. There's Dragon Ball. I think like the one where Beerus shows up, like the God of Destruction. I think it's that one first, then Resurrection, which deals with Frieza, and then Broly. Those three is the ones I would watch, and the three I've seen that are really entertaining. They have all the characters already there, and there's backstory. Because that's the thing. The thing with Dragon Ball, you've built up all these characters, right? So you can just put them in there and have them at play.
Well, Broly was was originally a movie character, right? Which was never also not really part of any continuity. And now I guess is properly in the continuity now. I don't know.
There was an earlier version of Broly, I think, right? Like
there's 3 earlier versions of Broly. He has 3 movies.
It is canon now. I mean, Broly exists, and it's interesting because in theory, Broly could be the most powerful in that, at least of like anybody under the gods or whatever. Like he didn't have all the development of everybody else, yet his lower forms were quite powerful.
So that's my question, right? So with characters like Frieza and Broly, like being said, there are past examples of them occurring in the media, obviously. So does Super advance their storylines, or is it like a retelling, like a reboot of those guys?
Super advances Frieza. Frieza is definitely developing more than he was before. As for Broly, I don't know, because I didn't see the earlier versions of it. Frieza, for good and for bad. I mean, Frieza is entertaining in some sense. He's also freaking annoying. In some sense, like, why do you keep bringing this guy back? And you just get rid of this guy. He keeps coming back, and like, because you guys are dumb.
Right. So Super basically just picks off right at the end of DBZ.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but then like several things gets reconned or whatever here and there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. It is that tricky thing with media like this that has such a like powerful cultural footprint that people like so clearly recognize certain characters like Frieza and stuff. Like there's this feeling that you need to bring them back again and again. Yes. Like it would be sort of antithetical to actually bring in like a new villain or new characters and stuff. You just have to like figure out how to make these guys who have existed forever work in a new way.
But they do. I'll give them that they handled it well. I think, especially the Broly movie really mixes everybody in together really well. So, and then Dragon Ball is about a couple of things: the fights, the comedy, and then the plot. Not so much, but a bit of character development. Like characters like Vegeta and Piccolo, for example, like they really do develop over time and are interesting. Like Goku's is the same idiot that he was 30 years ago, but it's those side characters that they got a lot of use out of, I think.
Oh yeah, that's cool. Like I think it's awesome that Dragon Ball is still sustaining, and it sounds to me like I know that, like you mentioned, GT. I think people really didn't like that approach, and it's cool that with Super, it seems like they've found their footing again. And that movie, Super Broly, it sounds like people really loved that in particular, which surprised me. So yeah, it's great that Dragon Ball is getting love again.
Yeah, I think Super goes ahead of. I'm guessing Super goes ahead of Broly, but I'm not 100% sure. To be honest, like I don't want to give away too much. So yeah. Check them out, and we'll hear what you thought of them the next time you're back. So that's it for Dragon Ball. We were going to talk about One Punch Man Season 2. So what did you think, Zach?
All right, I'm going to open the talk on One Punch Man Season 2. All right, so I'll say this with One Punch Man Season 2. I think, and we talked about this a little bit in the last one in terms of projecting what One Punch Man Season 2 is going to look like in the context of what Season 1 was. And I had this this idea that there was this concern that obviously with the idea of Saitama being this character who's all powerful and can defeat anyone, there is a risk that it doesn't have legs. It can't sustain for a long period of time. And I don't think that was necessarily the issue with One Punch Man Season 2. I think the situation is just that it's the kind of show that it is. It's a delicate formula. I think there's some shows that things don't all have to come together perfectly for it to work. But for this one, I think to some degree, things like all the aspects of the show, of the production in terms of things like obviously animation, which this season got dinged on a lot. There was the whole thing about them changing studios, and there was many scenes in the season that were less than impressive, especially the fight stuff. And beyond that, also just like poor direction. It felt to me like the choices of when to use certain music at certain parts was very strange, and it was very jarring. And in terms of like achieving that delicate formula where it all comes together and works really well, it felt like it fell short in that respect. And I think that it needs to come together in that precise way for this kind of show to work for me.
So I think the second season also suffers from the fact that the materials that it's covering,
right,
which is much more scattershot than compared to season 1.
Right.
I mean, even though season 1 it's focused, it has a bunch of very tiny arcs. It's surprisingly focused thematically, whereas season 2 jumps from all these different side characters, which is the same in the manga. But the manga it worked a little bit better in the manga than it did in the show.
Well, you don't have a clear ending point in the manga, right?
Right.
So season 2 is setting up for really good stuff in season 3. But the problem is if you have a transition season that's not going to be good as good as in plot because it's set up, it's world building, you need at least the good animation and music. So if you're lacking on everything, then it's like the worst combination, right?
Right. So, and also like, do you? So it very much depends on, do you care about all these other characters besides Saitama, or is the show just a purely Saitama / Genos driven show?
Right. And for me, for me, I am in it for Saitama for the most part, and he just did not get a lot of screen time in this season. Obviously, he fades into the background for significant amounts of time. In particular, the arc that just really was not fun for me was the whole tournament arc, which just was glacially slow.
No,
every single show.
Actually, tournament arc was fast in the anime. It was only like 2 episodes, something. Like tournament arc in the manga was freaking long.
Yeah,
and I think, like you mentioned, this idea of the material being, and just the fact that there isn't a lot right now for them to adapt right at the time they produce this, because just of the rate that the manga is being made. So they had to have this transition season that didn't really feel complete because there just wasn't enough material to work with.
Well, there was no true ending, really. I mean, they had that one thing getting killed, but it just kind of like it didn't really have a proper ending. The music, I think, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the music was, I mean, I can deal with even animation being off, but like the season 1 had the music time at the right level, the right tracks. And it just seemed a bit lacking at some key moments, even because there were still some key moments like that fight at the end with the end of the resolution of the tournament arc was with Sayu or whatever, like when he realizes what Saitama is and all that, and that, like, I really liked that in the manga. That was really good in the manga, and then it was good here, but it still didn't have that oomph of the music that I thought it could have.
Yeah, it was an odd choice in terms of how they cut together the episodes. That moment happens at the beginning of an episode. It's like a cliffhanger, and then that happens. There was a lot of strange choices in general with the season. But with that said, like you mentioned, I don't know how to say his name. I'm going to butcher all the names, but Suryu, the character that is introduced in that tournament arc, I loved him. I thought he was really cool.
He's like a Dragon Ball character, which is funny. He's like he transplanted the hair into the world of
for sure. And it's an interesting character idea of this guy who obviously doesn't think much of heroes and is kind of this aloof, just natural talent who's going to kind of have to learn some lessons. And I'm curious to see where that goes going forward. And there was a lot of good stuff with him. And of course, the standout of the season, Garu, again, probably screwing up the name. Very, very good character. Very fun to watch. Just very enjoyable throughout. And he had probably the best scenes overall in the season.
Yeah, I agree, actually. I'm glad you liked him. I mean, that was the point, is to build him up so then you can get more interesting things and moving onward. So I'm glad that it seemed to be that he was appreciated by the fandom.
Yeah. Really good backstory there, and just a unique character. And I also liked the conversations between Saitama and King. I really liked the dynamic between the two. And there were some really standout moments there. I think especially in I want to say the second to last episode, they're having that conversation, just like walking down the street and talking about, of course, the thing which I genuinely find very fascinating. And I hope to see more of as this continues. This idea, of course, of Saitama being this person who's completely kind of dissociated from what it means to be like a person anymore. It's just, I find that so interesting. I actually think he is an awesome character. So much about him is made of this idea that he's just like the guy who obviously is just all powerful, but there's a lot of cool character stuff that spins out from that I wish that we got more of, but I think that, there's the seeds of that I hope they continue to explore.
Well, the question is, do we know anything about season 3? Like, is it the same? I mean, I'm assuming it's the same studio, but what about the director? Are they able to get the director back? Do we have any information on that stuff, or?
We shouldn't assume the same studio either, considering what happened.
They might have. Well, hopefully that means that they go up to a better one, not downgrade to a lower one.
And it can always go down. There's always worse studios.
Yeah. I don't think there is any news on season 3 yet.
No.
Well, the reality is, like we said, there's not a lot of material yet, right? So they have to kind of wait till they have enough to make an anime.
There is in the comic. The webcomic has a lot of material.
Right.
The question is that in the manga, there's not a lot that's been adapted. It's a little bit ahead of what's happened, but not that much. Not enough like at the pace that they're going to fill out a season. So do they wait for the manga to get there, or do they just draw straight off the webcomic? That I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the show it's so strange to me because when the show obviously first came out, it was this massive hit, at least in the West. I don't know how well received it was in Japan, but it's straight. I think a part of it is by virtue of just the reality of the situation that it's a new manga that's taking time to develop. So obviously, it's had these huge breaks between the seasons, but it just feels like it's been underserved. Like for the love it got, it just feels like it's not gotten everything that it should have gotten.
I feel like lost a lot of momentum from season 1.
Yeah, it's very hard to get that back. I mean, even Attack on Titan had that problem, and how popular was that?
Might be a good segue.
Yeah, it is. Are we done with the One Punch, I guess? We're finished to move on. So another show, Attack on Titan, that took forever to come back. But at least Zach is back on the train, right? You're back.
Yeah, I think so. So I mean, this is a good setup, right? Because I think what happened with Attack on Titan, right, is that I was one of those people who watched the first season in 2013 or whatever that was, and I just everything I heard about the second season when it eventually came out 4 years later, of course, the same issue as One Punch Man, where it just had this huge delay in the production of it. It didn't entice me. I just kind of lost interest in the direction they seemed to be going with the story, but. From what I've heard from season 3, and obviously you guys have been keeping up with the manga, and so you know where the story is at right now. It seems like people are just back on this train, and it's gotten me really excited to potentially go back and catch up on it. So I'm curious. I'm just curious. Do you guys share that sentiment that the story has improved? It's gotten to a good place. It's all good, or is that way off?
Well, when we talk about first, Bill, in terms of watching the season, because you watched the season, what do you think? Has the season been adapting pretty good?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. So they've adapted through chapter 90. That was where they ended the season at, where the scouts get to the ocean. So they're setting up for everything that happens elsewhere, without getting too spoilery.
Do they see any? Do they have any more information that there's an ocean there? Do they have any location stuff, or that's not being?
Yeah, because they do go into Grisha's flashback to when So
the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, we know about Marley. We know about how they are oppressing the Eldians and the whole Nazi Jewish allegory that story brings with it.
I heard something about that too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people didn't quite understand the allegory, and they were just like, "Oh, this whole show is anti-Semitic because this is obviously." But it's like, no. They're just using that real world event, to help us understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of editorialization about the comparison. So I will say this: I do. So the show being anti-Semitic, of course, it's not. Whatever. Right. That's
there's no Jewish people in the show.
Well, it's not even that. I don't think the show. I mean, even from the allegorical standpoint, the show isn't necessarily saying. I will say Isayama plays it very loose with his allegories, or allegories of quotation marks. But not really allegories. What he's really is just borrowing themes and that he finds cool and just inserting them into his story. And sometimes he does that pretty recklessly. Without considering a lot of the baggages involved with the themes that he's taking.
Yes.
And I feel like this specific thing, and the reason why this gets a lot of attention, because it is such a major plot point for all of the history of the show, what the hell's in the basement. The reason why this got a lot of actual media attention, was that it was pretty clumsy. It was a very clumsy allegory, if you will, or not an allegory. He just took a theme. Story-wise, plot-wise, I think it took a lot of people who were new to the franchise actually were new to the material. The TV only watchers were actually quite impressed with the execution. So I feel like Studio Wit did a very good job in from what I've heard, because I actually haven't seen the actual episodes, so maybe I'm just, from what I heard, is that the studio did a very good job of recreating, of adaptation.
Yes.
And these are all issues that go straight back to the manga originally, and which is kind of weird, because for some of us that's 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did they show the map in the episode or no? In the anime?
I don't recall seeing the map.
Do you see a map, Zach? Did they show a map of anything?
I'm not caught up fully yet, so I don't know. But
right.
I'm familiar.
That's the best surprise.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with the big reveal. I'm curious about that, right? Because is that the thing that people are excited about mainly, or is there actually just like stuff with the storytelling and the character stuff in general?
There's so much more progression.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's more than that.
There's a lot to be going on.
That's good to hear.
It's hard to say. We're not going to go into spoilers here, but till after you're gone.
Sure.
But it's going to be hard to. We have to get to the end, I think, to judge it properly.
I would say this is the climax of the show, and whether you want to continue the show or not, this is where you make the decision, because what comes after that is going out on a completely different wild territory.
Yeah.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah, I think I'm 100% back in.
Cool.
In terms of you mentioned it. Seeing the end. Do we know there's a defined ending coming soon, or what's the situation with that with the manga?
Well, they've announced the final anime season will be in fall of 2020, so that's a little over a year away.
Right.
So season 3 ends at chapter 90, and we have another 29 chapters after that so far. And they're adapting about 5.5 chapters per episode, so I'm sort of expecting if they're going to do a 12 to 13 episode final season, we'll need about another 6 chapters to meet that. So the manga could end this December.
And I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised that it's going to end.
Good. I think it's definitely getting there. So there you go. I mean, he's ending it in good. He's not dragging it on for another decade.
It does have a feeling like it's wrapping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also good to hear. Yeah. Very nice.
We'll be back to cover it. The ending this year.
Yeah.
We thought, is it going to go? He's a big fan of Game of Thrones, so he doesn't go down that road.
Right.
Well.
All right, so obviously you guys want.
He's going to work on Star Wars. So
Speaking of Nazi allegories,
he's doing a manga adaptation of Star Wars. That's his next.
He would do that. He would absolutely do that. He's also a big fan of Star Wars.
Kind of forgot to make the ending good.
Well, I don't know. There's a shot in there of some of the Titans in the manga that are drawn at like the Game of Thrones characters. Like,
I saw that.
Yeah. And there's plenty of it got much more egregious in the newer chapters.
We'll talk about that after Zach is gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Attack on Titan. Vinland Saga, you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, I'll just quickly hit this up, and obviously can let you guys go into the depths of Attack on Titan. But yeah, it's the next project by Studio Wit, right? So there's kind of some continuity there with that. And yeah, so I came into this with pretty high expectations in terms of my knowledge of the what this manga is and how well regarded it is. And so far, there's only been 3 episodes of Vinland Saga so far, but so far it has been very good. It's beautifully animated. There's great music. Of course, the OP and the ED are really good. Obviously, can't comment too much on everything because of the fact that there's only been 3 episodes with this kind of strange release schedule where they released 3 at once and we're still waiting a couple weeks for episode 4. But yeah, it was great, and it was so good, in fact, that it made me want to go check out the manga itself and read that, which doesn't happen every day. So.
I've been an advocate for this manga since its very beginning. So I started reading this. This is one of the few mangas I did start from chapter 1 from the time when it first was released, which was now pretty much a decade ago.
So as someone who's deeply invested in this, obviously, how do you feel about the adaptation so far?
It's gorgeous. It's better than I thought it would be, which is insane. So when you said in the forum post the most basic, I only watch Vinland as the most basic. That sounds so weird to me because Vinland Saga it's still in my head this obscure property that only a few people who are interested in historical manga read.
Yeah, I might have the read on it wrong, but I just compared it to some of the more niche stuff,
I think it has somehow reached a much bigger audience than I could have anticipated. In release, and part of it may have to do with the fact that it's coming from Amazon, and they did put in a little bit effort in promoting it, and it is from a big studio like Studio Wit again. Which, but yeah, it just seems bizarre because it's not just, it's like just a few years ago there were news like they aren't going to keep printing the English translations of the manga because it's not selling enough. So I really hope. So I think the anime will really push it forward. So the anime started. It didn't start with chapter 1 of Vinland Saga. They started with sort of what is, but I think basically the first arc. Vinland Saga sort of started in media res and then went back to retell sort of the origin of Thorfinn. But the anime sort of just started right at the beginning of his life. And for those of you who don't know, so Vinland Saga actually tells the story of the discovery of, well, not the discovery, the first attempted settlement of Europeans in America by this guy named Thorfinn Karlsefni, who is an actual historical figure. And there are also many other historical figures in the anime that show up, other historical figures that show up in the anime, like Leif Erikson. And there are a few other important ones that also show up. So it's Vikings, but it's not the type of Viking show that you expect. There's a lot of violence, but it deals with the idea of violence, ideas about war, and these sort of themes in a very different perspective than, say, a show like Vikings on the History Channel.
Yep. Yeah, the way that it's handled some of that stuff so far, both in what I've read of the manga and the anime, is really impressive. Like some of the best interpretations of those themes that I've seen. And obviously it's going to get explored in much greater depth as it continues on. But like the character of Thor is who is the father of the main character, Thorfinn, who we see, as you said, in this flashback sequence that the show opens on, is so good. There are a couple moments already in the show that are just so powerful in terms of his perception of war and, you know, where he's come from and where he's at now. And it's really good. And there's a lot of really, you know, powerful, tragic material that's definitely brewing with that. And it's really engaging. Yeah, I was curious about your thoughts on that choice in the anime. I've read through the manga to the point where obviously I know that starts in media res, like you said. What did you think of that choice to not do that?
So the manga usually start like that, usually because they needed to attract attention to get some readers, attract audience immediately.
Yeah, into the action immediately.
Right.
Yeah.
So they open with a chapter that's often sort of can be standalone-ish. And which is what that chapter was, and that sort of just shows like some of the basic qualities of what this manga is going to be. And that chapter shows that it's going to be about Vikings. There's going to be a lot of war. It's going to be a lot of violence. It's about medieval historical warfare. But then doesn't really touch on any actual story and themes as much. It'll introduce some of the main characters maybe. So I feel like the anime, knowing that that there is some hype behind the story, I think they made the right decision to just start at the very beginning, the actual very beginning.
Yeah, I think for me, I really like in media res openings and then flashing back, pulling back to show where you came from. And I think that there are certain aspects of the anime that don't really hit because of the choice to go away from that. Like the reveal of Askeladd really doesn't feel like anything in the show yet. Obviously, we'll get filled in on what that's like after, but the actual reveal of him kind of fell flat in the show. But I think you're right. I think this is a more natural way to tell the story, and I think it actually does a really good job in this medium. I think hooking an audience, going back and seeing the setup to the main story that we're going to get to. So yeah, it's really good. I'm really happy with it so far, and I can't wait to get more of the anime, and I'm going to keep reading the manga as well.
I will say, so this is what is pretty much going to be the entire first. I mean, I assume there's going to be more seasons of Saga. Maybe I shouldn't assume that, but I assume it's going to be. Yeah. What it's going to cover is what is known in the manga as the prologue.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Sure, there's a lot, and the manga changes drastically after the prologue in terms of its theme and what it's like. And some people found that shift to be quite unnerving, and some people sort of always say, "Oh, it's not this anymore. It's that now." I don't know, but I like all of it. But yeah, just to know it is probably still the best part of the manga. It's almost this first arc is almost like a tour de force. The story just keeps going and going and hit one climax after another. So cool.
Yeah. That's the Vinland Saga chat. Discuss further on the forums for future episodes. Like if as the season goes on, you guys can keep posting, right? We have our sub forum for that. So
for sake of time, but yeah.
Okay, before Zach goes, I'm going to actually have the Attack on Titan spoiler chat at the very end of the episode anyway, so that people can avoid it if they want to. So that's at the very end. But the last thing with Zach, we'll just talk about the tragedy of Kyoto Animation. Bill, if you can tell us a bit what happened.
Yeah. So just before noon on July 18th, at Kyoto Animation's first studio, a 41-year-old man spread gasoline at the entrance of the building and lit it on fire. As people tried to escape the building, he was throwing gasoline on them, shouting, "Die, die." And there were 74 people in the building. Of those 74, 34 people died and 35 were injured. Only 2 of the deceased have been publicly identified so far. And the building was pretty much a total loss. The architecture of the building didn't really help the situation either, because there was this sort of a central spiral staircase to get to the 3 floors, and there were no doors on the staircase, at each floor. So the staircase acted basically as a chimney, and it spread the smoke throughout the building, and the fire spread. And I think over half of the deaths, the bodies were found trying to escape out the roof exit on the building. And that roof exit was apparently blocked. And so because it acted like a chimney, they all got stuck, and the smoke came up, and it just suffocated them. They captured the suspect. He has a criminal past. He served 3.5 years for armed robbery. Reports say that he has claimed that Kyoto Animation stole his novel, but there is absolutely no evidence that he has a novel or that he has submitted any work to them, because Kyoto Animation does solicit work from outsiders, but they have absolutely no records of ever dealing with them. They have received threats of violence in the past, but they can't link any of them to this guy. There is a GoFundMe that has been started by Sentai Animation, or Sentai Filmworks, which is a North American anime distributor, and that has raised over $2 million to help the victims with their medical bills or help the families with any funeral costs. Kyoto Animation has also set up a bank account purely to receive those donations and any donations in Japan. I've read reports that at anime specialty shops in Japan, they have donation boxes, and those are just stuffed full of cash. People reported seeing just wads of cash, just stuffed in there, hundreds of dollars at a time. So this is a awful tragedy for the anime community.
And sort of just to put this in a little bit more, even further perspective, this is the worst
yes
incident of mass killing in Japan since, 1950s, 1960s?
They're saying since World War II. Yeah.
Since World War II? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it even goes. Yeah. Well. So, which say this isn't even just about anime. This is
it's a national tragedy.
National tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they see why the roof was blocked? Had he blocked it, or it was just by chance it was blocked?
I think it was just by chance. The doors may have been locked up there. There's some speculation, which I think is maybe a tad racist and culturalist, that Kyoto Animation locked the roof so that nobody would go up there and commit suicide by jumping off. There's this dumb perception that Japanese people are all suicidal, but
it's just people often just lock roofs. Most people cannot go to the roof,
that too.
In most buildings.
Right.
But I don't know much about the building itself or whatever, was it particularly vulnerable? Like just the materials, like it seemed to have gone up really quickly. I guess you said it was the smoke that actually killed a lot of people, right? Even before the flames.
Right. Well,
there.
the building was a very open floor concept, because they have people. It's a creative space. You have to be able to communicate across the room with someone else. So there really were no walls to act as fire breaks in the building. And, again, there was lack of doors on the staircase, and there were no walls on the floors. So it just didn't help things. And, I mean, if you look at pictures of it, the first thing that leapt out at me is that there are no fire escapes. I mean, they have those 2 balconies right on the front of the building, which I guess you could jump from. It's only a 3-story building. You might break a leg in the process, but at least you aren't burning to death. But yeah, it seemed like there was just no easy way out of the building. Because of the 74 people in the building, almost 69 people were either injured or killed. Yeah,
I mean, it's one of those circumstances where there's just so little time. Like, right? You suddenly see what does fire, smoke, and there's crowded, and it's just a real tragedy for Japan. Like, it's really disheartening to hear about.
I read one analysis by a university professor that said if they didn't recognize within the first 5 minutes that they needed to get out of there, they probably weren't getting out of there alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is obviously a terrible, senseless thing. I don't really know. It's such a hard thing, right? And for me, like the thing I personally have to focus on is what you mentioned, Bill, which is how the community has really come together and done some incredible things. And I think this is a community that I think gets a lot of, the anime and manga community gets a lot of unfair shit thrown its way. And I think it's really moving to see everyone come together and show this kind of support, like to show it to, I guess, give a kind of balance to that. In the StarCraft community, we had a very significant figure pass away this past weekend, and it's the same sort of thing where it's been really moving to see people come together. And I don't know, I'm overcome by the power of community. When these things happen is the one thing that gives me solace when these things happen. And it's good to see that here.
Yeah. We're in about a year from yesterday, the 2020 Summer Olympics will be opening in Tokyo, and I fully expect there to be some sort of a memorial tribute during their opening ceremony.
Sure. Just to point out this, because a lot of people when the moment when this news broke, when there was a lot of how anime studios usually mistreat their employees. Kyoto Animation doesn't do that. Kyoto Animation's all their staff is fully salaried. They were renowned for treating their staff very well, giving them a good work environment. They're one of the few animation studios that exist, major studios that exist outside of Tokyo, which actually I think helped a lot because it is upheld very much within the local community in Kyoto, and also more just in the general Kansai area as being one of these great major important institutions that they have. So I think a lot of the sometimes correct stereotypes about animation studios doesn't really apply to KyoAni.
Right. And you can see the quality of their work too. Yeah. The first series of theirs I ever watched was the adaptation of Air in 2005, and I just remember looking at it and thinking, "Wow, this is like movie quality visuals." And that's like the first time I really took notice of the studio that produced it.
Didn't they make Clannad as well?
Yes,
I think the music for that was very good. Like, it's quite renowned. The audio tracks and music for Clannad, I've used them before for our podcasts. Like, they were good on everything, direction, animation.
Yeah, I mean, they made Haruhi Suzumiya, The Silent Voice, the movie, which we talked about a lot already. I'm generally not the biggest fan of all their shows, but their animation quality was never in question. Sort of the work they put into their project was never in question. And so this is a huge loss.
Okay, well, thanks for talking about it, guys. Before Zach goes, because we were chatting about One Punch Man and Attack on Titan and these like 4-year delays and the impact on the fandom. I'm just kind of curious to think, is this a recent view on things? Like, are we spoiled that we think 4 years is a long break? Like in the past, for certain products like anime, certain series, if there was a 4-year break, there might not be anything to fill the gap, so people were still happy when it came back. So do you think it was different maybe in the 90s or 80s, or do you think it still would have been an issue? I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that. Gaps of 4 years between seasons.
I wonder if there's maybe a rush to get things adapted into anime so that, like for Sailor Moon, for example, their first season was about 46 episodes long, and then they didn't have enough material to really, for the second season, to really start adapting right away. So they had to invent that whole thing with the tree and the aliens, which people generally say is, the worst part of the original 90s anime.
Oh, yeah.
But that was produced purely to give Takeuchi time to write more Sailor Moon so that they could adapt it. And, of course, that 90s anime didn't adapt the manga perfectly, but it did a pretty close job, but it was not a perfect adaptation.
Yeah, I think in the past, these long-running shows, they need to keep running to keep their TV slot.
Yes.
So what they did, the usual approach was the infamous filler arcs of all these different shows.
God, Naruto, the 100 episodes of filler. I watched all of those as a kid. I was like, when is the good stuff going to come back?
Because you thought, these episodes must have meaning, right? They're going to pay off later. No, they're just...
Sorry. I think that with new shows like My Hero Academia, even if you want to say, even One Punch Man, instead of what they do, they just take breaks. So that you don't see these. I don't remember the last film major show having these sort of filler arcs. I think there must be some of the big shonen shows that I don't watch that still have them. That need to just keep just churning out materials episode by episode. But I think nowadays the more standard practice just take breaks. Take breaks.
I think that's a good development. I think that's generally a good thing. Obviously, we talked about the kind of concerns about that, and I think it is, it is kind of escalated by the fact that we do live in a very instant gratification kind of culture now, where the flavor of the month is more like the flavor of the day now. So it's really hard to stay relevant. But I think that in terms of the production and the ways that television has changed, it's good that they kind of get more leashed like that. And I think that generally is a positive thing to me. I think that actually benefits these shows in the long run versus something like the filler arcs, like you said, where it just kind of dilutes the quality of the show, which I think is more dangerous. And we have a kind of, big example of this in our other fandom, of course. Game of Thrones didn't have the material, and we saw the consequences of that. So.
Right.
That's always a dangerous thing.
Maybe Game of Thrones should have had filler arc.
Yeah, exactly. They should have gone off to South Rose for a season.
It wasn't that they didn't have material; they cut a lot of it, right? From the books, it was there, and then you're right. I mean, they didn't have the material. They would have had to develop it.
They had to wait,
not just transition, actual proper material to be developed. Yeah.
They would have to keep creating new stuff until Martin decides that he wants to write more. So
Which would obviously be unfathomable in that sort of show, right?
20 seasons of filler.
That would never happen. But yeah, it is what it is. I think, generally speaking, I like that the big shonen stuff and just the big tentpole anime is willing to not subject us to the horrors of filler to that degree.
Yeah, I think probably the way I was thinking about it too is yes, they had the filler. In the West, we didn't get those things right away anyway, right? So we had to wait, right? There wasn't as much, but there's just so much. There's so much shows now, anime or regardless. There's just so much out there that you just go on to something else, which in a sense could be good, I guess. And you're not waiting so much for the other one. I'm just saying that do you experience the letdown in the conventions? Like One Punch Man was dropping, there wasn't a lot of cosplay, but finally it's starting to get up again, which is good.
Do you think if they had just done a bunch of filler material, that wouldn't have happened?
But they didn't need filler material. They had the material. It's just it didn't get made.
Yeah, that's a unique case. It sounds like that was just a very fraught production situation that just kind of went off the rails. So that just might be what that was.
Okay, thanks, Zach, for joining us. That was great to get you back on here.
Of course, yeah, it was a ton of fun. Thank you guys for inviting me back, and I'll try to keep catching up on all kinds of stuff so I have things to say in the future. I'd love to be back. I will say this before I leave: I haven't watched that workout anime that you guys might talk about, but I do endorse your opinion on dynamic stretching. I mean, so I will leave.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I'm trying to remember what I said. I think dynamic stretching is good. But some do some static stretching as well. Or is that what I said? Or maybe particularly for once you're warmed up, you still need, I think, the static stretching to get to the, So use both, I think, is the way to go, right?
I agree, and we can discuss that further on our stretching podcast.
That's right.
All right, thanks again, guys.
All right, cheers.
Talk to you.
Good time.
Bye, Zach.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we're going to push Attack on Titan to the very end, because for anyone who wants to avoid the latest manga spoilers. So let's wrap up before that with what you've been watching the season, like the best of the season, I guess. Tell us, and then we'll talk about the workout show.
Have you been watching anything this season, Bing?
Really, only 2 shows: Vinland Saga and Fruits Basket, which is not even this season.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
I guess we haven't taled about Fruits Basket, right?
Fruits Basket, the new Fruits Basket, right? It's the new 20 years later or 10, 15 years later or whatever.
Well, it's a reboot.
It's completely reboot, yeah.
The original creator was not at all happy with the original anime. And so this is... this wasn't really even planned necessarily. It was sort of like they had some anniversary manga event, and where it was like, oh, that would be great if we redid this. And it was like, oh, well, why don't we redo this? Yep. And so here we are.
So this is kind of similar to the Sailor Moon reboot, which this time is now being directed very heavily by the manga creator.
Yes.
And I liked the original show. I understand why the manga artist hated the original show, because this Fruits Basket, the original show was very comedic. It was directed by a guy named Taro Daiichi, who's very famous for his comedic timing. And he directed basically like side people.
It's kind of like his or her circumstances, I guess, right? The fight over being comedy versus drama.
Yeah, a little bit like that. Although in the case of Gainax, there's also a lot of other production issues.
Yeah.
And and Fruits Basket takes a very, very different turn towards the dramatic side in the manga. So I think the new show is good, although at this point hasn't really covered any new material yet. I think the animation is generally pretty good, although the character models can sometimes feel very, very flat. I think they almost look like paper.
Yeah, I'll agree.
Which I think that might be an effect of trying to be a little bit too faithful to the manga. The pacing is pretty good. Although I don't think it's actually that much different from the original show either. I think they're pretty much at the same spot as episode-wise.
Right. Well, the original show was 26 episodes, and I think they expect this one to double that.
Yeah. Well, the first season is basically a cover of this show. They do first core or whatever. It's going to be exactly the same as first. Well, covering exactly.
Okay. Bing, are you downloading something, by the way? You seem to be a bit choppy right now. We're not getting.
No, I think it's just internet being crappy.
Sorry, I lose you.
I think the internet is just being crappy. Am I right now?
It's still a bit choppy, but that's okay. We'll power through to the end here. I think we're almost done. So you'll keep us updated on Fruits Basket. I know my sister was a big fan of that. I'm not sure if she's watching this, but there always will be people who have the nostalgic view for the original, right? They might not want to or like the newer one, but at least the animation is decent, right?
Maybe I thought anybody who should just watch this new show anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on to Bill. I know you watch a lot, so why don't you just give us your top 3 of the season?
Okay, top 3. We're going to start with Aroburu Kisetsu no Otome Domoyo, which translates as Maidens Maidens of the Savage Season. It's a very thoughtful and tasteful look at high school girls coming to grips with their sexuality and how it affects them. There's absolutely nothing lurid or sensational in this. It's very well done. It's written by Mari Okada. This is like the first anime series where she is actually the original creator of it. She's kind of become an anime writing superstar over the past 10 years. And you can often find her name attached to most of the really popular shows in that time span. She worked on Anohana. She worked on Toradora. She I need to open up her page here so I can keep reading. That didn't open.
You mean she worked on Toradora? Like she wrote Toradora, or she assisted on it? Or?
Well, she is credited with the series composition, which is a term which is interchangeable with scriptwriter.
Interesting.
Which I think for adaptations generally means that she, decides the pacing, she decides, the tone of the voice, what scenes get cut, which scenes get, put here and put there. Sometimes that's also done sort of by committee. People go into a writer's room and they sit down and say, oh, well, this event here and that event there. And then usually the scriptwriter goes off and writes up the script, to match that. But she is renowned for being a very good anime writer. And that is certainly holding up in this series. I would say that this series is sort of like the anime cousin to My So-Called Life. If you're looking for a good way to think about it, or maybe a very, very PG version of Euphoria currently on HBO. But yeah, I'd say that's my top show for this season.
Cool. Do you have any other top two recommendations?
Probably the next one I would say is Joshikose no Muda Zukai, which is the wasteful days of high school girls, which is literally, it's about three high school girls just sort of wasting their youth. It's a comedy. It's very irreverent, very absurd. I've been reading ahead in the manga, and I'm loving every chapter. And I like how they are adapting it out of order. Like, they will take usually 3 or 4 manga chapters. They're very short chapters, and they will put them together into an episode. But they're jumping around, chapter 50 and chapter 2 and chapter 23 and chapter 9 all get put in the first episode. I
guess they have more leeway for the kind of slice of life show or something, right? That they can do that.
Yeah, and they also expand on the manga material because there are they had this joke about how this girl was trying to come up with a funny nickname for all her classmates to call her, and in the manga, it's just like, here's a list of names, and they sort of go through them one by one, like, oh, that's not funny, that's not funny. But in the anime, you actually see her being called by these names, by her classmates. And at the end of one, she's just like, I have no will to live anymore because she's been so beaten down by being called this ridiculous nickname. So that's a good example of how they've expanded on the manga material there to enhance the comedy of the show.
Is your third one the workout show?
It can be.
Well, if you got one, go ahead. If you got a third one, go ahead.
Third one I would say is Machikado Mazoku, which is...
It's about the horrible days of high school girls. Horror, it's a horror one, right? So the theme is a high school...
Not exactly. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, this one's about a high school girl also. It's about a high school girl who wakes up to discover she's actually a demon, and she has to go murder a magical girl.
So that's close.
And, yeah, it's kind of dark in its humor. She'll go to school and she has her horns and her tail that just grew the day before, and her friends are like, "Oh, hey, cool, what are those?" And she's like, "Oh, I want my destiny," and her friends like, "Oh, I wish I had a cool destiny like that too." So it's a parody of magical girl shows from the point of view of the villain. She has to become a villain, and she kind of bungles her way through it. I really didn't stop laughing throughout the whole first episode. It was just hilarious from start to finish.
Well, it's one of those concepts that could be done well for comedy purposes.
Yeah. And So and now we can move on to the dumbbell, the weightlifting girls.
Yeah.
What's the name of the show again? Dumbbell non Kilomotoru, which is how much is that dumbbell you're lifting? It's about a high school girl, big surprise, who kind of is putting on some weight, and her friend points out, hey, you're looking kind of big around the waist, you should go work out some. And so she goes and joins a gym. And the series is produced by Doga Kobo, and it actually has the same director as one of your favorites, Amin, Gekken Shoujo Nozaki-kun. So I'm sure you'll love it.
Yeah, I mean, it was very Gekken Shoujo was very well directed too, so I can kind of see the element there. I mean, part of this show is kind of like instructing people how to work out. It's like educational for Japanese people to promote that kind of thing. But so far, as Barrick was talking about on the forums, it's actually pretty accurate in terms of like different workout techniques. So like it's actually providing good information to people who might not have it otherwise, and it kind of eases them into it. It kind of explains like, oh, it's okay to start slow, right? Don't expect the world when you get started. Anything you're doing, any activity in the gym or otherwise, at least you're doing it and you kind of build it up, and that's fine. It's personal challenges, and there's not really any body shaming as far as I see so far. That one character,
no, not at all,
teases her, but that's it. And that's probably just a friend teasing you. It's not really meant to, like, to an extent, the character. I've only seen the 2 episodes, but she seems to she's getting something out of it. That's why she goes there. And another hilarious part of the show is like the guy in the show is like the Machio-san or whatever, his name Machio. He's there to help and he's good, but like he seems like he's the type of guy who's like he's got like his face. He looks like he's got like a geeky face, like he's a geeky character. Yet he's like super buff under the shirt. Yeah. It's like the weirdest combination ever. Like he seems like you're very slim. Almost, I don't say Bishosen, I'd say more like geeky type character, right? But yet he's like super buff.
Yeah, he flexes and his clothes just blow off of him. There was actually a scene in yesterday's episode that I don't think you've seen, where you actually see him like zipping up his jacket and all his muscles. He literally just like deflates.
Yeah, that's funny. So the last I saw of it was when then she turns like out that she can punch really hard, like she punches the bag. So I haven't seen anything. Somebody said this was a prequel for One Punch Man,
right?
For his mother or something. But I didn't see since that. I think it's probably at least 1 or 2 episodes since then that came out, right?
Right. I think it's been just 1 since that.
When does it come out usually? Is it Tuesdays or?
What's my schedule looking like here? It's every Wednesday.
It's 2, I think, because I don't think it must have been 1 yesterday, right? Yes, I think I'm 2.
Right. Yeah.
So I'll check that out again, see what it is. I mean, I don't know what the legs of it are, because having read the forums review of the manga, it says there's not much plot. It really is just like teaching you stuff, which is, I mean, I don't really need to see.
I don't expect it to be much plot at all.
Okay, so that's about it. We're going to end up here. For people who don't want to listen to Attack on Titan latest manga chapter spoilers, now's your time to take a break. And why don't we just put that in the after show? So thanks for joining me, you guys, for the main show.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Good to do our usual thing. Talk about Comic-Con and some of the latest anime manga we've been going through. So check us out at mastersofkingsgrave.wordpress.com. And we're on Facebook. And we don't have our own Twitter. It's just my Twitter. Javadi and me on Twitter. And we'll see you next time. Okay, so we're back for the after show to talk about Attack on Titan, latest manga spoilers as of July 2019. Now, the latest chapter that I saw was the Bullet Shot chapter. Is that the
right?
Is that the
that's the last one.
Yeah, 119.
So here we go.
Aaron gets headshot.
Spoilers here. So Aaron gets his head blown off by a bullet.
Rip Aaron.
Is he dead?
Yes, Aaron is dead.
Because his head has been severed and he's not in Titan form, so he should be dead in theory, right?
Theoretically.
I mean, it all depends on what exactly counts as death here, you know. Because I think that last panel, I don't have it in front of me. I think there's still like some strands of flesh, you know, connecting the head to the body. So, you know, what didn't Reiner sort of escape being killed
Yes.
through
Again.
similar means? Something like that?
Yes.
Oh, really?
His entire head was blown off.
Right.
Except,
That's what I thought.
but he was inside of a Titan at a time.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was the difference. I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how these things work anymore.
It's ballsy if they killed him. It's ballsy if they killed him. It could just be a great fake out. We'll see.
It also kind of makes no sense if they kill him.
It is, because the problem with Aaron's character is I still don't know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, that's the
Like,
problem.
Is he an asshole or is he playing a long game here? And if he just dies, how are we ever going to know that one way or another? Unless somebody else shows it.
Yeah. Him and Zeke's plan is like this second half's basement thing, except much worse.
Like, Zeke made sense if Zeke's plan originally was, I'm going to pretend to be with Marleyans, but I want to help my people. Fair enough. It's the ultimate long game, right? He betrayed his parents because they were going to be found anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But what Aaron was doing, like, I don't know yet. Was Aaron under Zeke's control and that's why he's an asshole? Or is Aaron an asshole generally? Or is Aaron an asshole because it's a long game and he's actually going to be good in the end? Like, it's complicated now that I can't evaluate it until I get to the end. The end is coming soon, then I'll be able to evaluate it, and it may be negative. Like you don't want to prejudge it because we haven't seen the last few chapters, so there may be explanations for this. But if he's just dead, then we may not know what happened. I mean, if he was controlled by his brother, well, then it's not his fault, right? He just got taken over. He's just
Right.
no autonomy. But I don't know. Like, it's just so convoluted right now.
Yeah. I pulled up the last page. His head is fully detached. So it looks pretty dead to me.
Who knows?
But if somebody eats him, they'll still get his memories, won't they, or something?
I don't think so. I think if he dies, his powers then get recycled sort of randomly into the populace.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Calves or something. I don't know.
So is the plan as far as it seems is they want to basically kill all Eldians, like all new ones? They don't have any kids, which is basically almost the same thing.
Yeah, I believe the plan was to render all Eldians infertile to it and the inheritance cycle of the Titan powers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's almost as bad as killing everybody.
It's
essentially genocide.
Yeah, it's genocide.
It's genocide. Like, it's just total evil. Okay, they get to live out their life. They can never have kids. They know they're going to die out. It's pretty bad.
There's a video game which this exact same scenario was conducted, and they were very clear that in that game to call it a genocide.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what that is.
Yeah. There's plenty of people with half-blood out there, I'm sure. Are they going to catch those people? I'm sure they'll just be born as somebody with half-blood or something, right? Like, does it matter? Like, do they have to be full-blood? It seems like they'll do all this and then just be born as some half-Marleyan kid or something.
Unless you have to be like a full-blood Eldian to get the Titan power in the first place.
Well, but wasn't Reiner not full-blood?
Was he?
Oh, but he ate one, though, didn't he? What was it?
Yeah, but that still means he has Titan powers.
Yeah, I don't know.
But he ate another Titan, though. He wasn't born with it, right?
Right.
Well, he has to be. You have to be able to turn into a regular Titan to eat another person.
That's
to
right. He was made into a Titan, and then he ate him. Yeah. So you could still be made into a Titan. Now, the question: can he be born into one? I don't know the rules of this thing.
I feel like this whole ever since the second half started, like past the current end point of the anime, this whole thing has just gotten way more convoluted than it needed to be.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it got away from Attack on Titan. Like, there's barely any. The Titan stuff is just so sidelined, just as a means of a couple of things going on. It just flipped the story way too much.
Or there's like multiple conspiracies going on at the same time.
Yeah. It was good to the sense of when they finally got rid of the main kingdom and they put Historia in. Like,
that was fine.
That was still good, but then since then,
but now she's pregnant.
Yeah, the final arc has been quite weak. It just I can't fully judge it till we get to the end. We'll see, but it could very well be a negative review for it. So we'll see.
I think that the main problem is suddenly we lost our perspective on all of these important characters. Yes. The only perspectives that we really have are the new ones, the Gabby, the kids, Armin, and a little bit of Armin and Mikasa. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. And we don't know what the hell Aaron's doing. We don't know what the hell Zeke is really doing until the last few chapters.
Yeah. Right.
Don't really know what the Marleyan upper people are planning. It seems that the entire Paradise Island government is just idiotics at this point, or it doesn't have one. There's the weird new the Yelena. That's her name. The giant woman. We have no idea what the hell her deal is.
Well, I mean, Aaron's like genocidal attack on his huge attack, terrorist attack, basically on the mainland too, right? Like doing that, and like it's just so convoluted. What the hell is your plan? Like I don't understand. Like you trying to get people sterilized, yet you want them also. You attack everybody, so they're gonna come attack you. Like I just don't get it. And he needs to have, like, he killed like tons of people in doing that too. Like there's no really he can't be redeemed. The only way he can be redeemed is if he was controlled, because then it wasn't his choice, right? He was just a robot because he had no autonomy. But otherwise, he just massacred all these people, and it's just confusing. And then also the Marleyans, like it seemed like remember the Warhammer Titan or whatever. And the other, it seemed like they were maybe actually running the Marleyans. Like it was kind of weird, right? It was like they were secretly in power. Like the few Eldians were actually running the Marley Empire. Did you get that reading? It seemed to be like the Warhammer or Titan, and they're actually the ones in charge. So they live in luxury, and then the rest of the people are in a jail, but they're running. Like just so convoluted.
But the problem is, like, all of these elements were just all completely introduced in the second half.
Yeah.
Post the end of this recent anime season. Some of it, I feel like the anime did as best as it could to sort of splice in elements of this, just so that it doesn't just come completely out of the blue later on, right? Like they put in little bits of that in Ymir's backstory to show Marley.
Yeah,
that was one. But like right now, there's just too much like going on at the same time. I feel like again, the reason I brought up Game of Thrones in the forum post is because I know that I know the manga. He watches all the stuff, and I feel like he's just trying to cram in all these different cool stuff that he just saw and just trying to somehow create this giant interwoven story like Game of Thrones. Or Star Wars, or whatever other thing that he's really into at this point. But I feel like he's just making a huge mess out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of potential with certain specific characters, like Gabby.
Yeah.
And such.
Gabby's character development has been pretty interesting. Yeah, some of the new characters have some good stuff, but there's just so many characters. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? I don't know. Just asshole number 4.
Right.
Yeah. There's too many new characters.
What the hell happened to Levi? Is Levi dead?
Or... No, he's hanging around. I think.
Question mark? I think. I don't know.
But then
got fried hard.
What happened? The guy. What's his name? Aaron's brother. What's his name again?
Zeke.
So Zeke got away then.
Right.
Like what? How did he get away? I forget.
Magic dreams. I think that's supposed to be the original Ymir.
What happened to so Ymir's backstory? Like, so is she from like what happened again? Like, how did Ymir get in? Like, I know she stole the Titan potion. Was that from the mainland then?
Ymir was wandering and was sentenced like with all the rest of her cult.
Oh, I see. There.
She was wandering, and she ate the original. Well, not the original one. The kid from Marley. What's his name? Marcel.
Marcel.
That's how she got out of it. But was she in the conspiracy then, or was she just some other random person?
No. She just heard about everything. Like eavesdropped on everything.
Oh.
Right. Anyways, she's dead now. And I think what's his name? Gellard. He's also dead. Or.
I don't have that name on my
chapter. List. The new Jaw Titan.
The new Jaw Titan I have down as Falco.
Yeah. Well. Oh, right. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Falco. 8. Right. Wait, what?
I don't know. I was going through Wikipedia last night. Just, you know.
The Falco. Oh, yeah. Falco 8, the last one.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Porco, or whatever his name is. Mm-hmm. He died. Right.
Just in like the last 2 or 3 chapters.
Yeah. Too many stuff going on.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to have to just be evaluated at the end. Probably by the time we have our next recording, we might be at the end of the manga. It's possible. Like we have 6 months or so, or longer.
Yeah,
we can finally sit back and see what the hell happened here. But the odds are not that good right now with the way it's going. So Yeah, I don't know. It would be ballsy to kill Eren, but then they'd be missing stuff. So it seems like a fake out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Some kind of fake out. I don't know. Like Eren was really transferred himself to something else, or that was just a fake Eren. I don't know. We shall see.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, good chatting with you guys. That's it then for this episode.
Uh-huh.
Because the after show's ending up here. So Phil, send me a recording by email, I guess.
All right.
Or via Skype, I guess I can save it. Yeah. Okay. See you guys.
All right.
All right. Later.